Hello guys and girls, how's it going? Screezilla here and I hope you're all well, and welcome back to War Thunder. And today you join me in the B6N1, one of the new planes for this update. World War II plane actually for this update, which is always nice. It's nice to get these things occasionally. Let's quickly talk about this plane. So the B6N2 was Japanese carrier bomber, sorry, not fighter, long-range carrier bomber, designed for that purpose. Very okay carrier bomber, like it did its job. Carries an 800 kilogram bomb. Can carry the Japanese torpedoes, which are useful. The torpedoes are tilted down by 2 degrees, so you can drop them very low without issue of bounce. This plane suffered horrendously because it didn't get into service until about 43, I think. It was very much the end of 42, sort of 43, this plane actually got into service, just because, well, you know, Japan was suffering by that stage of the war and they were struggling a lot. The plane had an okay career. The Tenzan was okay. It was, you know, it was an okay plane. What more can you say about it? Historically, it's useful. And just look here in the chat quickly. Well, about the battle text. All the team kills. I know we had player damage turned off in realistic battle quickly for a couple of days and then turned back on again. Honestly, I feel they should turn player damage off on rank 1 planes. Sort of team damage off on these planes, because you get so many just fail squads of people coming in just to cause bullshit like this and shooting down friendly planes. It's very bullshitty, in all honesty. So, this plane, if I have to compare it to anything, I've got to compare it to the Swordfish, in all honesty. It's very similar. It's like a Swordfish, but suffers because it's a 2.0 plane. That means you're going to face some seriously good planes. In a down tier, it's not too bad. In an up tier, you are screwed overall. It's a pretty terrible plane. If you've ever flown the B5, you will know. This does have the addition of a extra gun, however. On the wingtip there you can see the 7.62mm machine gun there on the outside wing. One of the interesting factors is you do have the lower gun as well as the upper gun. You only have one gunner, but of course, being War Thunder, they work at the same time, basically, the gunner switches, and you have your navigator in the middle. So similar to the Swordfish in the way it's set up, because of course this is a naval bomber, so it was having to do rather large sorties. It had a very good range as a naval bomber. That was one of its strengths, was its actual range and speed. A range of around about 1,000 miles, which is not bad at all. It had fairly decent speed of around about 207 miles per hour, about 300 odd kilometers per hour for cruising speed, which again is not too bad. So, you know, as a carrier bomber, it was quite useful. But of course, as I said, it really lacks in this game, because at first you're stuck with the 60 kilogram bombs, which are of course absolutely bloody useless. You then get the choice of two 250 kilogram bombs or a 800 kilogram bomb. I think they've actually removed the naval bomb from this one, so it no longer has that. And then of course you have the two 7.7s in the back, so you've got 3 guns on you. They're all very weak. If you're in a match like this where you're at lower tier, it's not too bad, but when you get up tiered, it's a lot worse. You've got the Mitsubishi 14-cylinder air-cooled radial piston engine, of course. Fairly decent power in it. You know, it doesn't suffer for power, but it doesn't have any air brakes, so again, dives you have to be very careful. It only has landing flaps as well, and its low airspeed handling is absolutely terrible, which is all what you want in a plane, especially a carrier-borne plane. Obviously, one of its big features was its sort of slightly curved tail. That was its big telltale sign. But a pun there. That was one of its features. It had some decent strength landing gear. It was quite a strong plane. It was fairly durable. Of course, it didn't have self-sealing fuel tanks, and that was actually a logical reason on this plane, because if it had, well, they did actually make a variant with self-sealing fuel tanks as a prototype, but it reduced the fuel by, I think it was about 60%. It reduced the fuel down to 80%, sorry. So a 20% reduction in fuel, and that meant a cut of range by about 200 to 300 miles, which is a big loss. So they decided against that because they needed the range. So obviously you've got your fuel tanks in the wings there. Not really had an issue with fire in this plane. I've only flown it a few times. Obviously it's probably going to be more of an issue as you go on higher up the ranks and you start getting 50 cals with incendiaries and stuff like that. When you're at this low BR fighting reserve planes / very low tier planes, it's not too bad. But when you get a bit higher, you do really struggle. As I said, the 60 kilogram bombs are absolutely bloody terrible. They really don't do enough to really kill anything. You've got to be very, very accurate with them, and without the diving capability, it really suffers. So you can't really do all that much with it. The fact there are 3 variants of the plane as well does make my eyes roll a little bit. The fact they didn't add the B6N free model, which was a prototype with a more powerful engine in it, as well as some slightly better landing gear as well. It was a prototype. There were only 2 built, but it would make more sense than adding the B6N2 model, which was really no different from the N1, other than removing the 7.7mm machine gun from the actual pilot. The main difference for the N2 model was a slightly different engine. The N1 had the Nakajima engine in it. Sorry, it has Nakajima. Does that have a Nakajima engine? Oh, I've got to think now. I think it had the Mitsubishi or Nakajima. Wait, I'm trying to think now. I actually have to look at my notes again. But yeah, they slight differences, but not really anything worth looking at. The big difference is when you get to the N6-2A, which has a 13mm machine gun in the back, which, you know, it's not really that much difference. This plane ended its career, like most Japanese planes, especially larger ones. It ended its career as a Divine Wind plane, kamikaze plane, and a lot of them were used in those missions. The Battle of Okinawa is where it started to be used in that, and I think it was one of the first planes to go in for it as well. So yeah, it has some history in that respect, but again, this plane really just is very lackluster. It very much struggles. We do have one remaining in the world as well, in Washington DC. The plane at least has an existing example, which is always nice. Once you get the 250 kilogram bombs, they're not too bad. You can see this plane has quite a lot of wobble as well when you're actually flying in a straight line. It can be a bit difficult. We've got a P-36 coming in at us now. So we're going for a dive to get that bomb off to try and actually, get some RP in this match, because this thing is no dogfighter. The machine gun on the front is very, very tricky because it's so far on the outside of the wing, it's hard to use. The rear guns aren't that powerful, so they've got a very slow rate of fire, and also they've got a very poor arc of fire as well, so you've got to be very careful with it. But where this plane shines is in its turn speed. Like all Japanese planes, it's very good at turning, and we get in a dogfight here with the P36 here, and this is where we're going to actually get some interesting footage of not just bombing. We've got a couple of hits on our rear, the guy's sitting on our 6, we try and get a few shots with our tail gun, but not really getting much luck, and we're going to get strafed pretty easily with that. So we're going to get into a turn, we're going to use our flaps for that as well. You've got to be careful because the flaps do have an easy ripping speed. Of course, we've also got the window there at the back for the navigator to do his work, and there is bomb sights on this plane, so that is something that is a bonus as well. You do have that bombing sight, which is quite useful. So we cut in on this guy, and we get our first couple of shots off. Misses. The firing rate on that machine gun, again, is not the best. It's your typical low-tier Japanese machine gun, and, it's not very strong. This plane is quite good in the vertical gain as well. It's got enough power to get up there. It's quite a heavy beast, but when you're fighting some of the very underpowered American planes of the day, you do have that ability to really start fighting them hard and actually causing them quite a bit of bother, because they can't get away from you in a turn. They can't pull up from you. And you've also got the ability to pull down on them quite well. This plane does like to drop. So we get a couple of good strafes here again, and we're getting very, very close to him and the ground as well. He's going up again. We're going to go up and scissor around, roll over, and try and drop down on him. So you can see this plane does have some good agility to it, and that's its only saving grace, really. We get some hits, and finally we get a pilot snipe, which is nice. We've got another P36 coming in head on. We try and do a couple of hits. There's also a Havoc coming in, and that's going to be a problem. We've got two planes fighting us now, which is not fun. The Havoc, of course, has quite a few guns at the front too, so we've got to be very careful of this. So we're going to get into a little bit of a tourney fight, try and avoid the Havoc's guns, try not to get strafed too much, and as you can see, those rear guns are firing away for us. We get some shots with our rear gun in on the guy behind us, which is good. We get a couple of good hits on him and now get turning again. We finally break off one of our flaps, which is not so good, and we've got some damage. We do a head on to the Havoc there, and we get a couple of good hits. We switch to our rear gun again, and we get a nice hit on the enemy as well. But we go down. So we've managed to knock out his engine, so that's something. We've gone down in flames, we've died, but we're going to end this match with 2 kills, which I think is about the best that I'm ever going to do in this plane. It's not going to do much better than that. I think a 2-kill game is about all you can ask for, in all honesty. So yeah, the B6N1, it's mediocre, really. It's good to have it there as a historical point, but when we head to the results page, I'll talk about the other variants. So we'll finish here because, well, we're pretty much done, and we'll head to the end results screen. And so there we go, ladies and gentlemen, the B6N1, well, the first variant of it. This plane is very lackluster. It's good to have it in the game as an actual plane because, well, it is it's got a historical importance and it is deserved in the tech tree. I don't think all 3 variants are needed though. I think you could just do with the 2, in all honesty. But now, what are you going to say about it? We actually managed to get 2 kills in that match, which is pretty damn impressive for this plane because this thing isn't at a absolute dog of a plane. In fact, we finished first in the team with 2 kills, is just saying something. And the rampant team killing at the start of the match there. Yeah, sometimes you just got to wonder. Obviously not aced this plane yet, but you can see the results here. I've got a 30% booster because I was just grinding it a little bit, so I got some nice amount of RP for it for a few things and bits and bobs. Let's just quickly click through these, do some researching and all that kind of stuff. I'm probably going to actually get the plane aced in that one match, so that's, well, close to aced actually. I'm not going to get there. Not quite there yet. So, yeah, this plane has got a very lackluster performance. At 2.0, I feel it's a little bit too high, in all honesty. It could be closer to 1.7. It could be closer to the B5, the B5N2, the Kate, which was the later model of the plane, and yes, it lacks that gun, but it's very similar performance, very similar planes, in all honesty. Obviously, the N6 was an evolution of it. It was a very late war evolution of it at the same time, as we said before, but the fact that we've got the last variations, the N2A, in there as well, it's kind of a bit, well, what's the point, really? The only real upgrade is that 13mm machine gun, which it's not going to make that much difference, in all honesty. It's not really enough to make it go, oh wow, this is amazing, this really upgrades the plane. You know, you could have gone with the B6N2A and just ignored the B6N2, because essentially neither of these planes have offensive guns. They're pretty much the same. They're very, very similar in their design. You know, the only difference is you've got a 13mm machine gun up the top. Up here, you've still got the 7.62mm machine gun down here. So, you know, you've got a 303 and then you've got a 13mm, but that's not going to be enough to really do much. Everything else is the same. It's very much this thing of copy paste again back into the game. I mean, even the loadout is the same. So effectively, it's, you know, I don't understand the thinking of adding the N2 variant in there. It's just an extra plane to grind for. They're the same BR, for crying out loud. It's just it's pointless. Makes no sense whatsoever, but well, that's Gaijin for you, isn't it, really? Nonsensical in the utmost. This plane, it's not going to be revolutionary to Japanese gameplay. The only good thing about it is the fact it does carry an 800 kilogram bomb, which is a fairly hefty load. But the B5N2 does that already, and I'm pretty sure modification-wise, yeah, same modification, sorry. So yeah, it's, you know, it carries the same bombs. It's, you know, it's one of those just, why Gaijin, why? Like, add the B6N1 in there and maybe the 2A, but we don't need these little extra variants. It's like the D4Y2. You know, again, it's not needed. It's just there for the sake of making the grind longer, and it doesn't really add anything to the gameplay. Again, it's just kind of pointless. So yeah, overall, it's a very lackluster plane. I mean, it's good at turning. I guess that's the one thing you can say about it. Okay, guys. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this little video, and I will catch you all again next time. Bye bye.